Senator Heller.
Chairman McCaskill, thank you, and I'd like to thank the witnesses that are here today for both hearings, and also thank Chairman McCaskill for this second hearing on General Motors. Today, based on the findings of the Valukas report, we can confirm that this is in fact one of the darkest chapters in the history of General Motors. An ignition switch supplied by Delphi was approved by GM even though it failed to meet GM's own standard specification for torque resistance. Due to these failures, the ignition switch would slip from run to accessory with little more than a knee hitting the key or the car driving over a bump. The car's power shut off while it was being driven. Now, I've raced cars my entire life, I'll tell you. Even for the most experienced drivers, there's nothing more terrifying than a loss of power while moving at high speeds. I can only imagine the sheer terror of the individual who was driving these vehicles the moment the ignition slipped into or slipped out of run. What those drivers didn't know as their cars swerved across lanes, hit walls, inclines, ravines, and trees was that the one thing that could have saved their life, the airbag, was not going to deploy because the power to the airbag itself was shut off. If, and this is a big if, after a few crashes, General Motors was able to understand the ignition switch problem, many more lives could have been saved. But as the Valukas report points out, group after group, committee after committee within GM failed to take action or acted too slowly for over a decade. Two critical factors have been identified as reasons for this. First, GM failed to understand how its cars were built. Let me repeat that. GM failed to understand how its cars were built. Incredibly, the official findings pin the blame for the delay to recall this car on the fact that GM didn't understand how its own car was built. Second, the same engineer who approved the original ignition switch changed the part in 2006 and did not inform any person at GM and did not change the part number. People died and millions more were put at risk because GM didn't understand its own car, and one engineer cut corners and then changed the torque on the part without telling anybody or, again, changing the model number. 54 frontal impact crashes and more than a dozen fatalities later, we find ourselves here this morning for our second hearing on this issue. It is truly a dark chapter in the history of General Motors. What we need to do today is to make sure that the Valukas report is the full story. Is the Valukas report accurate? Is it the definitive account of this matter, or are there missing pieces? The CEO of Delphi is with us today, and it's my hope that he will help this subcommittee understand if there's additional information that provides us with more of a complete picture. I hope his testimony today will be forthcoming and not circle the wagons. We need to know what happened here, and Delphi has a responsibility to the families and the survivors to provide a complete picture. If Delphi knows more than the Valukas report identified or believes there are inaccuracies, now is the time to make those known. The Valukas report offers a strong timeline of the issues, but I have concerns that it may not paint the entire picture. I'd like to explore whether Delphi was fully cooperative. In the Valukas report, it states that Delphi had numerous documents and other relevant material that they did not supply. Chairman, I'm appreciative that we're holding this hearing. Nevadans and all Americans deserve to know that for over a decade, General Motors and Delphi failed to demonstrate a basic level of corporate competence. There will be a discussion regarding whether changes of laws are necessary, and however, if GM understood how their own cars worked and followed current legal obligations to report defects to NHTSA in a timely manner, lives would have been saved and we would not be here today. Thank you, Chairman.